Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone's dinner going? It's a bit hard to see from up here. It's good. Excellent. It's my pleasure to join you this evening. I've been asked to take a moment to introduce you to tonight's dinner speaker, Professor Michael Rosemann. Professor Michael Rosemann is a distinguished academic, acting Deputy Vice-Chancellor, International and Development, and Head of Information Systems School for Queensland University Technology. I'll tell you a little more about Professor Rosemann in a minute, but before I do that, I also need to make an important public announcement. So here's Dr. Tim. He's pointing sideways, he's got the guns out, but he really needs to have them pointing down at the words pivotal principles that are highlighted in blue. This is currently the homepage for Pivotal, www.pivotal2015.org. And I'm inviting you all, encouraging you all, really commanding with the limited extent of my authority, to, over the next 12, maybe 18 hours, click on those blue words and explore the page that follows. So the subsequent page links both to a document that describes draft pivotal principles that were assembled by 4 esteemed members of our community. And the intent of pivotal principles is to come up with some thoughts, some summary thoughts on this event, and we will have the opportunity to contribute to the definition of those thoughts. So there is, if you like, a foundation from which we can work, described on that link, Pivotal Principles. And subsequent to that is the Pivotal Principles survey, highlighted also in blue. I hope there's no one here that can't see blue. So the bad news is we're really asking you all to take the time to have a look at those pivotal principles, and it will take a moment of your time, so be prepared to do it over breakfast. And then hop onto the Pivotal Principles survey and complete that to provide your feedback, to be a part of the community that describes the outcome from this wonderful 2 days. In return, there will be 3 prizes that will be awarded, I believe, at lunchtime. So you really need to get your act together on this one. Okay? So we really want you to take a look at those pivotal principles, hop onto the Pivotal Principles survey, fill out the questionnaire and put yourself in the running for 3 fantastic prizes. I can't tell you what they are because I don't know. That's how good they are. Well, right, I don't know. I'm getting random body language. So I don't know, maybe they're just telling me to hurry up. So moving right along, and returning, I guess, to the theme of this evening and my role here, which is intended to be introducing our guest speaker and not being it, I'll return to introducing us to Professor Michael Rosemann. So before I do that, however, I was struck by Peter Beattie's comments this afternoon when he waxed lyrical on our relative merits on entrepreneurialism, commercialisation and innovation. Now, Professor Michael Rosemann is a German, and Peter Beattie was talking about the Germans and their love for innovation, and their love for entrepreneurialism and their capacity for commercialisation to get their ideas into the marketplace, to monetise them and to draw and export income out of them. And, hopefully we can all take away some pearls of wisdom from that. Fortunately, though, the Germans love much more than innovation and entrepreneurialism and commercialisation. Oh, look at this. Oh, this is the paper I was supposed to show you. And, no doubt, the survey. Oh, no survey, just David Hasselhoff, who the Germans really love. And why wouldn't they? The guy can dance, he can sing, he can act. He even loves little puppy dogs. Sometimes just a little bit too much. Fortunately, however, the Germans also have a love for technology, and I think that's why we have Professor Michael Rosemann with us here this evening. So this is if you like, a spatial bar graph that describes the adoption of Navazon, which is a crowdsourced Wi-Fi geolocation service. If your geography is any good and you've got a good imagination, you can join me in imagining that the blue line that's going, crazy out to the northwest of this image is Germany and their adoption of Navazon. So beyond being good at, adopting technology, innovating, commercialising, exporting, I guess, this segues back to my role tonight, which is to introduce you to one of Germany's greatest exports, Professor Michael Rosemann. And we welcome him into our community and his contribution, and certainly tonight it will be interesting to get some ideas from him, because as John Cleese has said, we certainly don't get them from our laptops. So I welcome a German to give us a reality check and join us in becoming, and help us, if you like, to become the future. So in my final act of attention-seeking behaviour this evening, I will give you the bio that I was asked to present. So we all know already of Professor Michael Rosemann's academic credentials at QUT. What you may not be aware of, however, is that in his role as head of QUT's Information Systems School, he established 3 innovation chairs funded by Woolworths, PricewaterhouseCoopers and Brisbane Airport. Furthermore, the SIBA Chair of Spatial Information and the new CRC-SI funded Chair in Spatial Sciences are also part of this school. Dr. Rosemann is the author/editor of 7 books, more than 250 refereed papers. That makes my brain hurt. Editorial board member of 10 international journals and co-inventor of US patents. His publications have been translated into Russian, Mandarin, German and Portuguese. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the David Hasselhoff of the information industry here in Australia, Professor Michael Rosemann.
Well, what an intro. Thank you. Thanks, Alistair. Wow, what introduction. When I arrived in 97, it gave me credibility that I could teach SAP with a German accent, and I had Indian students asking me if they should learn German because they want to become SAP experts. And today it gives me some more credibility that Peter Beattie made statements about Germany. I wasn't sure about the David Hasselhoff, so I promise I leave my suit on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and I'm delighted to be here. I'd like to welcome everybody who came from outside Australia in particular and overcame the spatial constraints to Brisbane, our new world city apparently. And it's lovely and great to have you all here. In keeping with the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we stand. I wish to pay respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders continue to play within our community. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to talk about the digital mind. The digital mind means how do we develop a mindset that takes us through the years to come. And we are surrounded by digital natives and we've got kids. And we can be digital native by nature, but the idea is to develop a digital mind by nurture. And I want to take you on a little journey, and because while we all have dinner, let's take with a restaurant example. So a friend of mine runs a restaurant, and he followed on TripAdvisor comments and realized people were less polite with their comments, and they were complaining it takes quite a while to get food. Now, 10 years ago, in 2005, the world looked like this. People actually came, chatted, talked. They would sit down, order food after 8 minutes. They get served a few minutes later. On average, 65 minutes from sitting down to paying the bill. 10 years later, how does the world look like? Slightly different. So people come, they sit down. On average, 20% will ask the waiter, do you have Wi-Fi and what's the password? It takes 21 minutes before they actually order. Once food is served, on average, they spend 3 minutes taking pictures of the food, 4 minutes of taking pictures of their friends, and 2 minutes taking pictures of friends with food. Many ask the waiter, like it happened tonight, to take some group shots. Average time from sitting down to ordering 115 minutes. Welcome to what I call the dual world. So the dual world is the coexistence of a physical and a digital world. let's pick another example that's maybe closer to your home, closer to the domain of spatial information. So we work with a local car insurance company here. And they're concerned now that following a recent study of QT's Center for Accident Research and Road Safety, 22%, so more than one in 5 accidents, car accidents, are caused by distraction, and a staggering 71% of all truck accidents are caused by distraction. Now you see a typical scenario here, and the default response of the insurance company was, we could develop an app that uses the accelerometer. So I know when you're driving, so what I do is I switch off your device. It's the same idea when you hop in your car, and some cars have this these days. There's an alcohol control, and if there's too much alcohol in your blood, the car won't start. I think Gmail had the attempt after 10 p.m. They would ask you 2 questions. And if you could not answer these 2 questions, you had no access to your email. So the idea was a bit like after a night like tonight, you had too many drinks, and you might send an email to the girl that sat next to you, and we just protect your reputation. So this was the default response, and that's what we call kind of automation and looking after our customers. Now, when you go to the digital natives of today, you get a very different response. In this picture, the distraction is not my mobile device, because I can use it since I'm 2, 6, or 10. But when I'm 16, a terrible, terrible distraction enters my life called driving. So I have to pay attention to the physical world. And so the physical world, in this case, is the distraction. That's the reason why students come to lecture theaters. And when we have options, that often the digital world is much more interesting than the physical world. And I want to take this simple example to reflect on 4 lessons we can learn from this. So first, as I highlighted, options might exist, and digital is more important than physical. We see this in the space of spatial information in particular. My brother-in-law would try to work out if the balcony that he has at the place where he goes on holidays could see the sunset. And he would use Street View to work out what's the closest way to the next 7-Eleven. So where possible, people, in certain cases, purely consume digital content and opt out of the physical world. Second, there's an entire generation that can't wait to insert spatial information in our car. And it's very important to understand this. And this generation will not be satisfied just by having a car that takes you around. This generation will assume that on Monday morning, your car will negotiate with insurance companies, and for the rest of the week, gets the best deal. And the car will only start, of course, when your car's insured. Second, it will expect that you negotiate on behalf of the driver with petrol stations around you. So we'll know before you know that you run out of petrol, and it's using spatial information to negotiate with the environment. We call this B2T relationships, business to think relationships. So all of a sudden, on the other side, it's not B2B or B2C, it's B2T. And this think, depending on where it is, will start negotiations with other things, other consumers, or other businesses. In certain cases, when you're able to build up the trust, those individuals might share their dynamic location. I understand that Uber in the United States explores the idea where you arrive at an airport, different to your home airport, and the sheer fact that your dynamic location, where you are right now, is used as a trigger to order a taxi. Yeah, you might remember the old days when you picked up a phone and would call. In this case, I have a trusted provider. You've got access to my dynamic location, and you treat this as a purchase order. And this is the world that is emerging in front of our eyes. Third, this example shows us there are organizations with a strong digital mind, let's say Google and Apple, and what they do is they trade off spatial information and in return get a share of digital attention. And that's very important to understand. So what I do is I take the struggle of the physical world out of your life by smart utilization of spatial information, and in return, I get you unconditional digital attention. So what Google and Apple will do, they will unlock the biggest amount of human time we've ever seen in history. And you can only imagine the commercial value of this. So these people will be the ones who do all kind of online trading, banking, dealing with government services, or consuming medical services. So this notion of share of digital attention is something we have to understand. And those who have a high share of digital attention will become essential brokers of information. So I want to show you a little video to highlight the power of digital attention. And for this, I take you to Guatemala. So Guatemala, as you might know or could imagine, has slightly different health and safety standards to Australia. And the gentleman that you can see here is about to buy shoes in a shoe shop.
Yeah, the Nike store. There he is. He's getting the message. There's a promotion for Reebok. And thanks for yeah, we got him.
Trendiest shoe store in Guatemala, a brand known for its edgy, cutting style and a store known for its unique discounts and limited edition kicks including brands like Adidas, Nike and Reebok. An icon for the sneakerhead subculture with over 60,000 fans on their fan page in less than a year. They needed to launch a new promotion to live up to their hardcore fans, an innovative way to earn your discount. We created Hijack, an enhancement for the official Meatpack app used by our customers. Using GPS tracking technology that marks every competitor store of the brand sold at Meatpack. So every time one of our sneakerheads enters one of the stores, it triggers a special notice with a promotion. Hijack sends an alert to the person's mobile with a discount that starts at 99% and decreases by 1% every second that goes by, making the countdown start until you reach our store. More than 600 customers were hijacked from the competitors in a week. One customer, Pedro Rodriguez, got a record-breaking 89% discount. This is the first promo campaign that started the sale in the competitors' stores.
So that shows the commercial power when I've got a high share of digital attention and a certain smart utilization of spatial information. So we can imagine a world where we as citizens move through space and providers will compete for our attention. Let's take my very own university. Do I work on a reactive model where consumers come to me, or on a proactive model where I come to you? Can we imagine a world where education is dropped at certain locations, where I know what you need to know at a certain space before you know what you need to know? I can repeat this if you want. So the idea is that I want to make space accessible for the purpose of education. So organizations like universities who are facing a variety of revenue threats have to explore what's possible. And the idea of using spatial information and marrying spatial information with the idea of proactive provision of content in the form of education, for free or not, is one model of how this could be commercialized. Fourth and finally, what we learned from the initial car insurance example, in the digital world, we come to the consumer, and the consumer won't come to us. In the future, the consumer will have now appetite to move through thousands of web pages searching for open data. The consumer will expect that you come to him. So what we're using at QET, this is an iBeacon. Yeah, you can buy this for roughly $20. Some of you might remember the old days. You would go to a meeting and someone 2 weeks in advance would send an email with a 20 megabyte PowerPoint attachment. What we do is we attach documents to locations. With other words, and I'm doing this in 4 weeks at Australia Post for 500 people, you have this in your pocket. And because you're close to me, you open up the app and whatever you can see here will immediately appear on your device. There's no more click on this web link, go this, I'll send you an email or remember this password. I come to you because I'm close to you. So this is the notion of dynamic spatial information combined with content, content that is accessible because you're close to me. In some cases, you want the opposite. And my favorite example is frenemies. So frenemies is the opposite of Facebook. So Alistair, after all those comments, I might say, hey, Alistair, I really don't like you. And Alistair might say in return, and Michael, I don't like you. So once we have this sort of agreement, we agree on a safety zone, let's say 500 meters. And so while I would walk on a Friday night through the streets of Brisbane, my phone would alert me and make sure that I never run to Alistair on a Friday night. $1.99 on the App Store, in case you're interested. So these are deployments of spatial information. Now you can imagine I can use this for air quality data or for pollen allergies. So where I proactively make sure that what I know is very proactively pushed out to consumers who subscribe to those sort of information, like we subscribe to television today. You just subscribe to location-sensitive data streams. And that brings me to our big observation. Where's the world in terms of economies heading? So for the last hundreds, if not thousands of years, we had an economy of corporations. So the only thing that matters were companies, their boundaries, and all kinds of technologies were developed for corporations. This was the world when automation mattered. When we looked at the problems, and we threw technology to fix what doesn't work, to make those companies more effective and efficient. What the digital economy is doing is to empower people. And that's the core element of the digital economy. It's the economy of people. We have companies like MyWave.me in New Zealand. They develop systems for people. So you bring your own data into relationships. I bring my own data to a relationship. That could mean for someone like Australia Post. Instead of me writing down a static address, a classical mailbox, I, as a sender, have no interest to work out where you are or where you want to be. In computer science, we call this late binding. I just say where it should go. Maybe I need a mobile number. And then this parcel will find its way to you. And it's a quite realistic idea for a lot of logistics companies. The idea of bring your own data, in the economy of people, you become a very active provider. I remember tweeting the idea and asked people, what do you think about the parcel that will track you down? And people said, in general, I like it, but not when I get my fridge delivered. So that's one project we're working on. And then finally, of course, we come to the world of the economy of things. So the economy of things, and what I called earlier B2T, is the emergence of billions and billions of devices, and many of them will have space-sensitive behavior. So imagine in the future, your house will probably know before you know that will be flooded next time. So this house will have certain interactions, maybe with the government, maybe approaching your home and content insurance and asking for a bunch of students helping to carry televisions upstairs. So these are environments where an economy of things will emerge, and we see entire new patterns. So the world we will see is potentially opportunity-rich, but maybe also job-poor. So we have to develop an environment where we create new jobs. And maybe the most important visualization for tonight, I'm biased, looks like this. The red line is what I pick up from the Kano model, is the so-called hygiene factor. So hygiene factors are the things you do well, but your customer just says, finally. That's what I expect. I expect today that I actually know where my car is. That doesn't blow me away. I'm just surprised it's not mainstream. In the US, my car hits a tree, and if I spend enough money for the car, my car will notify hospitals in the environment. My car might even talk to me and said, Michael, based on the impact, I think you've got a spinal injury. Please do not get up. And it was not a joke now. So this is potentially available right now while we talk. The car manufacturer has no interest in providing ambulance services. So he will sell data as a service to someone who provides an ambulance as a service. And that's the only economic incentive for the car manufacturer to make those sort of information available. So what we see in the future, we need data economists, not just people who can analyze data. We need data economists who can make economic sense out of data and work out, is this a digital public good available for free? or is this a digital private good, not available for free? Now, most companies on this bottom left corner, they're busy being busy, trying to arrive in 2010 or 2015. We understand the red line well. The red line is really reactive and driven by today's problem. The red line is analysis intensive. The blue line is design intensive. The blue line creates experiences we could not have imagined. So I'll give you an example. And the example I gave you earlier was the one around the educational exercise. Where you ask yourself, as a university, what can I do with spatial information in education? So what we need is not just to observe technologies in the making, but to complement them with design skills to create experiences that today nobody can even articulate. Below the line is what I call cost resilience. That means you're incredibly cost effective, and having in mind Kodak, the day they died, were in the top right corner of that red line. Kodak was a globally admired showcase for process efficiency. They're just very bad on the blue line. Second, most companies have a 1 to 1,000 ratio between blue and red line. They are busy being busy, but don't understand how to become revenue resilient. That means how do I actually survive and protect my revenue in the future. So that brings us to the core difference between what was the past and what's the future. And that automation is very different to digitization. Automation is the economy of corporations. Digitization is about the economy of people. Digitization takes part in the life of people to proactively stream data, and the emergence of personal recommender systems will lead to an entirely new breed of solutions. And when I asked Google, what is the biggest competitor to the search engine, the answer was the find engine. People are not smart enough to search, so we have to get better at finding what they need to know. So we have to ask ourselves, when we sit on spatial information, not how do I make them available so in case someone searches, finds them, but proactively design experiences and work out who would benefit from them and proactively approach them. But that requires, as I highlighted, more business designers and business analysts and moving away from a convenient product to an experience-rich product. Now, what we're working on in our research is to develop a digital mindset, 7 facets of a digital mind. I talked about the share of digital attention. I talked about the digital signals that your car sends out when it hits a tree. And I talked about the digital capital, the data that consumers bring into the relationships. I let you know where I am. So I expect that the ambulance comes to me, the parcel comes to me, relevant education comes to me, or the taxi comes to me. The digital community means we get better with every new user. And most platforms with spatial information don't really do this well. While digital-minded companies get better and create a monopoly-like situation. There's no competition to YouTube, Pinterest, Google Search, Pinterest, and so on. And this is because they capitalize on social capital. I want to end up with just 2 ideas around what sort of new products are potentially on the radar. The first one is around data markets and data supply chains. So the oyster farm in Tasmania has a primary supply chain. My oysters going to Woolies and Coles. But what we have now in the Internet of Things are now a lot about my environment. I've got a lot of sensors in the soil, in the ocean, but this is data that I potentially don't need. There's an oversupply of data. But I'm too busy to find consumers. So what we believe is that we either have data supply chains, I know what I need on a regular basis, and I can consume this, or data markets. In a very simple world, imagine like a Gumtree or eBay-like environment. That doesn't mean money has to flow, but that means we need an ecosystem where data that is available meets people, decision makers who need data, and in between, a rich ecosystem of individuals and corporations and services who can aggregate, analyze, visualize, or clean data. The other example, and the final example for tonight, spatial information meeting banks. We imagine a world where one layer of spatial information is a monetary layer. A monetary layer means you can go from your bank account to where you are right now. Simple example, imagine one of you will pay the bill at your table. How do you get your money? Well, in the old days, you might collect emails, then you send them an email and say, here's my BSB and account number. You go home, enter, add a password, BSB account number, transfer your money, and because your account can't tweet, you have to check if the money has arrived. Yeah, these are the old days. What is the new day? You just create a table where you are, and people put money on the table, and you collect that money. It's like the old days when we had cash. At this point in time, not a single bank on this planet can do this. So it's a kind of obvious no-brainer for spatial information meeting banks and for the availability of monetary information against locations. So what we need to unlock is enter new scenarios that are not problem-driven, but opportunity-driven. I started with food, and I understand you had dessert in the meantime. We realize customers come to us, but they sit there forever, so we have to come to where they are. And my favorite example is the creme brulee man in San Francisco. As of this morning, 23,000 followers on Twitter. Two things are happening. I let you know where I am, and you, customers, let me know where you are so I can come to you. So you can see in the physical world, we mimic the digital world. We come to you because that's what the economy of people will do to us. I might leave it there, but if you're keen on more, we have a little Hamish and Andy, I call it Digital Week, where every week we try to summarize what happened for the way home on a Friday afternoon. Again, thank you so much.